Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, good night, wherever you are in the world. This is Dr. Jacqueline King, and we are back. I'm back with my two favorite people, Chanel Rose and Bishop Kevin Whitaker. And
Hey, hey.
we have something to share with you as we always do. So before I get started, Chanel, go and say hi. When you're coming in, come in. You know the routine. Come in. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We want to connect with you. Go ahead, Chanel.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. My
Oh,
favorite part of the week. Every week I'm always like, okay, even if the first half of the week, it's not performed the way I want it to, I always know I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna leave happy. So good morning. Hello from Chicago.
All right. Well, good morning. I am not nearly as jovial as she is. However,
And that's no
I am.
caffeine.
I am okay. I am a little excited because we are resuming our Bible study again, starting back tonight. So I'm excited about that. We've been on hiatus for about 4 weeks, and so I'm excited about that. But I'm looking forward to today's topic. Let's get it.
yeah. So Octavia, Daryl, Belial, Judy, go ahead and share the broadcast. We want to fill it up. Let's fill it up. Fill up the room because we're going to be talking about something that's really important today. It's the power of active listening, building deeper connections, and enhancing communication. Do you know that communication is the biggest cause of failed relationships?
Absolutely.
Talk a little. You deal with a lot of people, Bishop. Talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Of course, with my own personal experience and growing in relationships, afforded me an opportunity, along with my wife, to counsel a lot of couples. And one of the things that is a highlighted, sensitive matter is the fact that one or the other will not listen, and it literally destroys relationships. And what we've discovered is that if a person would just really take time to listen, the problem is not nearly as severe as it sounds, right? And so not listening, it kind of puts you in a place where you are literally assuming things that are not right. So therefore you're now projecting an attitude that is unnecessary. And so listening has definitely, but not just in marriage, okay, but in any relationship, what we have discovered, just through counseling, family counseling. It doesn't always have to be marriage. It could be parents and children. It could be in friendships, right? Just talk with someone who said they had to end a friendship of 30 years.
Mm.
And all it boils down to is listening.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Listen.
I mean, it really does. And so, my introduction, I like to have my notes. In a world buzzing with information, the art of active listening stands as a beacon of meaningful communication. Beyond the mere act of hearing, active listening involves a conscious effort to truly understand and engage with others. And go ahead, Janelle, because I'll go ahead and talk about that a little more. What do you guys say about it? Active listening.
It's funny you should ask me that. um, I think that in this social media 60-second video soundbite world, um and particularly for like my generation and younger, I'd argue that the worst, absolute worst, positive attribute we have sometimes is listening. Because even like social media, for example, when you watch videos, they have captions, so half the time we watch them on mute. Like I watch videos on mute all the time, and I think we spend a lot of time being talked at and not communicating. So it creates this like weird predicament where active listening is really like full circle communication. You say something, I participate, I listen for understanding, not to respond. And I feel like in a lot of relationships, business, personal, interpersonal, there's not a whole lot of active listening. There's a whole lot of talking at people, not a whole lot of communicating. Even like in the pandemic when we all were inside, right? It was a lot of email, Zoom. So I just think that like in 2024 specifically, it's my hope that we will all start to get together in the room again and get like back the texture of listening. And I think that sometimes even when I'm on Zoom, I'll zone out for a second. I'm like, wait, Chanel, this person is taking the time to talk to you. And it's not for long, but like I find that it happens more on Zoom than it ever does in person. So I think that with active listening, one of the things I've done is I have like a no tab rule. So like here I'm moderating, right? So I'm on here talking to you all, but I'm also moderating the comments a bit, typing things in, but still like that's it. And there was a time when I'll be on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and just honestly being fully transparent, not listening and also not doing a very good job of communicating and being very frustrated a lot because I felt like I wasn't being heard. But I was like, well, fool, you don't listen to people. Why you want somebody to listen to you? You don't about to listen to nobody else. So I think that you could be a great communicator and still kind of suffer, you know, kind of like following your own sword.
That's
That is
interesting.
yeah, that's, you said a mouthful.
You
But you know,
did it. Our little guru.
you ever
Go ahead.
you ever talk to someone and the conversation is a good conversation, but you just can't wait till they shut up so you can say what you got to say. So honestly, basically, I know everybody's done it. Basically, you pretty much missed what they said because you're so busy getting your thoughts together, how you going to respond. I know we've all done it, right?
Yeah.
Right, Bishop?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's just human nature. That when you hear something and it triggers a thought or a response, I think it's just human nature to kind of zone out and gather everything that you're going to say in rebuttal or response to whatever has been presented, and many times you miss the whole point
Right,
because you tapped out a few minutes ago, right?
right.
So you could prepare your rebuttal, so you could prepare your response. But one of the things that I like to say is, and that I've learned over the years, is that when people know that you are a good listener, they know or they believe and sense a high level of value that you may
Yeah.
have for them. And so, as Chanel was saying, this generation is different, and I know that to be true. I have daughters. One of my daughters just turned 18 yesterday, so she is uh, kind of toddling over the young lady to young adult. She's kind of over that, and so it can be a little intense sometimes because she doesn't like to listen. But then I also have a daughter in her 30s, right? And we just had a meeting that we had to discuss some family things, and hey, listening will show people how much you value them. And so I think it behooves us to always be conscious when we go into conversations, when we go into meetings, to always be conscious of the fact that this person needs to know that you value their voice. They need to know that.
Absolutely. So Jody Brown says, my friend, a male, says women do not listen. He says, we think we're listening just because we're talking to each other. I don't agree with him. What say you? I'm going to let Bishop answer that one because you know I'm not going to agree with that.
Well, I think so. You're talking to a man who has a wife,
And
who has a sister who is 10 years younger, and five daughters. Okay.
whew,
So
that's what I said. I'm sorry.
So
I say that to him all the time, but go ahead.
yeah, first of all, let me preface it with this. I don't agree that women don't listen. I believe that women need more detail than a man would. And so women typically don't grab a hold to something if it's just surface. But if you choose to go deeper, oh, she'll pay attention because now we get into the root of the matter. My wife wants to know details. I can't just say, hey, we need this such and such. She want to know why. She want to know what's cost. She want to know how long. She want to know like so.
Yeah.
So if I don't have details, she kind of zoomed out. She not really locked in. And I think that's just how women are wired. They're wired to detail. And women are, I had to share this with a man once before. He kept saying that his wife was disrespectful. She's so disrespectful. She just and so when we sat down with them, what I found out was is that she was not disrespectful. She was passionate, right? And so we have to learn as men. We have to learn the difference in relationships between disrespect and passion, right? And so no, I think that women listen when they think that they have something valuable to listen to, if I can put it like that.
I like that. I like that. So active listening is more than just hearing. It's a dynamic process that involves fully concentrating, understanding, responding, and remembering what is being communicated. Ha! It goes beyond the surface level, delving into emotions, intentions, nuances conveyed by the speaker. See, it's not, I hear you, but I'm processing what you said, so I will be able to accurately respond without just saying, throwing something out because,
Sure,
you want to hear something, right?
Mhm.
sure,
Jeanette?
sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say, like, so when I think about listening, or whenever somebody says listening, I automatically translate it into communicating, because I think that, like, listening and speaking, right, go hand in hand. Because even if you're listening for understanding, you're processing, right, and eventually, hopefully, you're going to communicate something with your actions, your words. There will be something that's taking place.
Sure.
I'll give you an example. I remember when I was younger, I dated this guy, right? And so I am someone who wants to handle it and let it go. So I'm not a grudge holder, but I also don't sit in anger, right? And I don't process things the same way other people do, right? So if I'm upset, I'll tell you, like, I'm at XYZ. We talk about it. We squash our beef. He was not that way. So he was a processor. So if I said, hey, I didn't like when you XYZ, he would need time and then we could circle back. And for me, that was exhausting. Because it's like, this happened 3 days ago, bro. Why you don't have nothing to say? Why we don't have no actions? Why aren't we through this? And in that space, and this is like something I learned very early on, he would want to keep things normal until he was able to figure things out. And for me, I'm like, no, it's not normal because we didn't take care of it. So there's no hugs and kisses and there's nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to realize that, first of all, that was selfish and I wasn't doing my part. Because if I was listening to not just his words, I was listening to his actions, I would have realized, and I eventually did, but I would have realized that he just doesn't process the same as me. And so being a good listener in that instance was listening to what he needed, not just from what he was saying, but what his actions were. And he would always, circle back around and we could talk about it, but that was exhausting for me. And I realized, like, that's very controlling. It's selfish. And, if it goes on for long enough, it can be abusive because I'm not allowing him to get through things the way he needs to get through them. And so I stopped and, like, now I listen to what people need. And, like, even when they're not speaking, I can tell, okay, maybe your body language is different. Maybe your energy has changed. I want to resolve this. I respect you. I'll back off. Or I'll lean in and I try to really understand what's being communicated with me. Because I think that we understand words, but we don't always, like, adjust to the texture of people's actions in a way. Dr. Jackie having fun.
I'm reading this comment. They're cracking cracking me up. I'm sorry. I'm not actively listening because
you're not, and it's okay.
I'm
It's
really
distracting.
distracted. I was going to talk about that too. They funny. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just saying, like, just understanding. When we talk about listening, remember, it's not just words, it's actions. And again, everybody doesn't process the same as you. And I've learned that, again, I'm the kind of person who, like, and Dr. Jackie is too. Because if I'm not doing what she said, she'll pick up the phone and be like, I told you. I'm like, yeah, I know. But I'm also a woman enough to admit
She
that,
does
like,
that to everybody, not just you.
right, but I'm woman enough to admit that, like, she called me today. I was like, oh, did you get the email? I was like, I saw the first one. She's like, well, there was another one. And I was like, oh, I didn't see that. But she was like, well, what have you been doing? I'm like, Dr. Jackie, I just need a minute, but I like that. Like, don't just let me be out here, flapping in the wind,
Sure.
And she recognizes that I'm a communicator. I'm usually on it. And when I'm not, she like, what's happening over there in Chicago? So again, appreciating that the communication of listening is not just words, it's actions too.
And I am a big, Bishop will tell you, I'm a big communicator.
Right.
I will be on it. I'll be doing a million things, but if something comes to my mind that you missed, Bishop will tell you, I'll be like, wait a minute. Hold on. What happened to this? We didn't what?
Absolutely.
But really, you have to hold each other accountable too. Because if you're working together like we are, we depend on each other.
Amen.
I need you, you need me. If I'm falling by the wayside, you tell me. I can take it. I really can. So we really have to understand that. But active listening begins with being fully present, like I just wasn't a minute ago. Eliminate distractions, maintain eye contact, and show genuine interest in the speaker. You ever talk to somebody and they looking around, you talking to them and they looking around, you like, okay, so am I talking to the wall? You ever do that?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think that when you look away, which a lot of people tend to do, some people are really afraid of direct communication. It's just hard for them. Some people do it because they're disingenuous, right? And so they're looking away, and because they're really uninterested in whatever this conversation is about. But I want to go back to something that Chanel says, if I can, that she was talking about how the young man that she was dating would take time to process. I just want to say, no, I want to say this to all women, because in counseling, my wife and I always share with couples, but it's applicable here. We share with couples that there are some things that are across the board, right? That all women are wired a certain way, right? And so there are some things that are just universal to all women. Likewise, there are some things that are just universal to all men, or should I say, most women or most men. Most men, they are processors, right? We take information in, we compartmentalize it, and we start a database, and we start processing. And a lot of times, women are much quicker on their feet. Women are much quicker when they think. Men need more time to process, because men typically in communication, we're trying to make sure, this is most men, that I'm not being disrespected in this. What happened? What the balloons come from? What?
Some balloons just came up.
Do you have an iPhone?
I do.
Yeah, so when you have an iPhone, if you do
And
like,
why would I have anything other than that?
so if you
Please.
do this, it'll send hearts. If you do this, it'll give a thumbs up. It's the new iPhone update. So just
Well,
be
that's
mindful. If you're
that's
moving
where
your
my
hand,
age is kicking in, because I did not know that.
so just be mindful when you're moving your hands. You'll get emojis. So like if you do a thumbs up will appear. It should. Eventually it will, but it'll do that.
Okay, you see me trying to put it to the test right then and there.
It will, because it scared me the other day. That's why I don't use my cell phone. I was like, oh, hugs, and then I was like, whoa, they'll come up. Yeah.
But that's how typically how most men are. Um, most men process things. We have to come back a few days later and rehash it, because now we've had time to think, right? We've had time to process it, and now we are ready for a more, what I would consider, more effective line of communication.
I want to just shout out my cousin Alexandria is on, share the broadcast. Linda Gray, our nonprofit executive director for BWE, she is on. And hello to everyone. We thank you for being on. Please, 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 please share the broadcast. It's good conversation we're having today. So listen, there are also nonverbal clues, body language, facial expressions. I'm bad with that. And gestures are powerful tools in active listening. They convey empathy and understanding and making the speaker feel heard and valued. You know what? For me, you can read, if you know me, you can read my face and know when I'm ticked off. Can you not, Bishop?
Yes, ma'am.
I,
That is
I, I have
absolutely true.
not been able to camouflage that in my life. It's
It's been the most difficult thing for me. I'm better now, but I am known to not have a poker face. Um,
me.
so, there have been times where we've been in church services, and the preacher was up preaching, and it was just horrific, horrible, unbiblical, and I'm sitting in the pulpit looking like, I can't believe this. And my wife would get my attention, be like, smile, smile. She like, it's on your face. She texts me like, you're looking like you're not enjoying the message. And I'm like, yeah. But I'm much better now, than I used to be. Much better
I have one. I have a great poker face. It gets me in trouble a lot.
now.
A lot, because I will do this. And, and like, I don't even realize it's happening. And sometimes like people around me be like, we need some emotion. But it's because, for those of y'all who don't know, my background's in politics. And so being the person representing, a governor or some other elected official, I've been in some very difficult situations, like going to funerals. I'm from Chicago, from people who have been murdered. On the flip side, I've had to sit in meetings where people are just extremely dogmatic and polarizing. I've been in situations where people are having very difficult hardships and we have to help them navigate it. And how I feel is secondary to what needs to get done. And so I've adjusted to the fact that, like, I got friends, right? I have a mama. And let me tell you, I have called my mom at 3 a.m., 3 p.m., screaming into the phone, like, and then they did this, and then they did that. I'm a crazy person. You driving down the street on Bluetooth, and they screaming, you like, what is wrong with her? Everything. Like, I just sat through this meeting for an hour, and I wanted to jump on the table and yell at everybody, but instead I just have to give them a blank stare and proactively approach the goal, because I wasn't necessarily representing myself. So I've adapted, kind of like an all or nothing. My friends get everything. They get the full throttle range of emotions, but publicly, a lot of times I was never given the luxury of my own response. Because if I make a face, it's the lieutenant governor making that face. If I make a face, it's this elected official making a face. And the last thing I want is to, like, characterize their emotions in a way that we're not having to, like, walk it back. And I was put in these, like, very high level rooms with policymakers from sometimes across the world. And so they may say something that, like, I don't appreciate, but it's not me appreciating. It's 100,000 people in that community who I'm representing, or it's the state of Illinois that I'm representing. And so I had to be mindful of it. But I mean, somebody says it cultural. It is, but you can, move away from it if you have to.
Yeah, so we're giving you tips and actually examples, but one of the things is reflective responses. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Responding thoughtfully to what the speaker has said reinforces a sense of connection. Paraphrasing, did I hear you say, or did I understand you correctly? Summarizing or asking clarifying questions demonstrates that you're engaged in the conversation. That really goes a long way. A lot of us don't ever do that, but I'm going to tell you what, that'll make the person that you're talking to, even if you're not, it'll make them believe that you are engaged and actively listening and care about what they say. Right, Bishop?
Sure, sure. My wife and I, even in our marriage, which this year we'll be celebrating 24 years.
Woo.
Uh, yeah.
Congratulations.
We learned that just asking a simple question would change the whole dynamic of the communication, and so we both started some years back, just saying, hey, I didn't hear you, what could you repeat that? Because a lot of times you can hear incorrectly, and then if you hear incorrectly, then you respond incorrectly,
Ooh.
right? And that's
Well, you
just
hit
that's
the
just
nail on the head that time, Lord.
yeah, yeah. It's important that I hear correctly what you said or what you're trying to say. Even if you can't perfectly articulate it, then I can maybe throw some words in to help you articulate how you feel, so we can get to the bottom line. And so it's always important to ask questions. Asking questions, it really reveals that you are trying to effectively communicate, right? It really does. And so it's important, but also it holds us accountable to the conversation, right? Like listening, asking questions, all of that. So you're accountable now, and you're spoken for. And so say for instance, if we're having a conversation, and you're just sitting there, then I don't know if you heard me. I don't know if you understand me. But if you're asking questions, if you're engaging, now we are in an effective communication, line of communication, and now I can hold you accountable, right? I can hold you accountable to this conversation, and I think that's important in any effective communication.
Or even knowing when they aren't ready for the conversation. And that's also hard because I love
Woo!
how like mature and evolved the two of you are. And I hope to God that one day I am there. But I'm a constant work in progress, right? And so
We
I
all
am,
are.
I'm
Yeah, we
single,
all
I'm
are.
dating. And, every time you date a new person, it's like you have to do a hard reset on what you've learned. And I have realized over the years in every relationship, even with my mom, or my grandmother, my uncles, my cousins, is that like sometimes people just aren't ready to have the conversation. And particularly if it's like something difficult, I'll give you a random example. My friend had a very late stage miscarriage. And so her husband wanted to talk about it. And she was just dejected, like couldn't talk about it, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to like think about it, and actually woke up the next day when she left the hospital like nothing happened. And he was having a very hard time. And so I was just hanging out at their house, just trying to comfort my friend or just understand if she wanted comfort. And if she want to act like it didn't happen, we're gonna act like it didn't happen, right? But I'm in the house with somebody who was like wanting to talk to me about it and trying to like, teeter in that. And then she's just acting like it didn't happen. And so he was just like, she didn't want to talk about it. I was like, well, it's your responsibility to respect the fact that she got to go through it, how she go through it. And maybe the two of you going through it together is give each other the grace to grieve differently. And I was like, I know that you guys have been together for so long. Y'all are like one person, so much so that people just refer to y'all by your last names. Nobody even has the first name anymore. But maybe this is the point in your relationship where your identities just shift a little bit and evolve to another level. Like you can't decide that y'all have to go through this exactly the same way. And I was like, if you want to go to therapy, go to therapy. He's like, well, I need her to go with me. I was like, do you? Or do you feel like she should? And I was like, I think it's your brain. I think you're going to be okay. And he was like, you're the first person who actually said, like, it's okay for us to grieve different. Everybody else is like, well, you need to force her to go to therapy. She did eventually go, but she didn't go right away. And I think it's, again, like you can go through the exact same thing with somebody and expect for them to evolve the way you do. But again, when listening to their actions, she needed to pretend it didn't happen for a while, but it happened to her and her body, right? And so I think that, like, and I told him, I was like, she knows, she was there, and maybe she just needs to be. And thankfully they're still together. But again, sometimes you just gotta like be proactive. And I was proud of him for taking care of himself and going to get the help he needed without trying to force her to also get the help he needed, you know?
Sure,
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, yeah, and you know that. So as we level up, because that, you know, that's our theme this year. Christian women level up, and men too. You have to level up in your communication, because if you're going to be in business, even if you're not going to be in business, communication is the root to just about everything that you will ever do. So if you're not there, that's why we're here. We're giving you tips and information on how to improve, enhance, and strengthen your communication skills. Building trust. Active listening creates an environment of trust. When people feel heard and understood, trust naturally flourishes, forming the foundation for strong relationships. I can't say that enough. You don't how are you going to trust somebody when you're trying to be their friend, relationship, wife, spouse, and they won't even listen to you? They won't even
Right.
pretend like they're listening to you.
Yeah.
You can't build a foundation of trust like that, right, Bishop?
No, no, you can't. Listening and communicating, um, or listening while communicating is essential to making good decisions, good choices. Again, if I hear you incorrectly, then I respond incorrectly, and therefore my actions they're not good. They're not conducive for the harmony of this relationship. And so, Chanel, she always says things that kind of triggers thoughts. She was talking about how you have to respect the fact if a person is ready for a conversation. I gotta go back to that because when my wife and I, when we counsel with couples, one of the things that we tell them is that in our marriage there were things that we realized that needed attention early on, but we weren't ready to have those conversations, right? And so there were things that we fixed in the first year. Then there were things that we fixed in the third year. There were things that we fixed in the 10th year,
Mhm.
right? Because watch this, every relationship has to grow to a certain point where it has a certain level of strength to carry a certain kind of conversation. And so we tell couples all the time, before you have this conversation, make sure that your marriage is strong enough
Mm.
to have this kind of conversation because it can make or break you. And so, but I believe that in any relationship, just as marriage, in any relationship, if you're going to have the hard conversations, which I think that void of hard conversations, you really can't build anything valuable. But if you're going to have them, then you got to make sure that that relationship is strong enough to hold the weight of that conversation.
Yeah, and we are talking verbal communication, but you know what the biggest issue now is? Texting. Oh my God. Now, y'all laugh, but y'all know it's the truth.
It
Somebody
is.
can text. I remember actually, I got an email years ago when I was working in corporate America. And so everyone knows that women go through these hormone changes, around that
Sure.
time of the month. And we can get real crazy. Well, I got an email it was probably about 15 to 20 people on the email. And it just set me off. I mean, I read it, and I before I could even think about it, I responded, and I went off. When I tell you I went off, I went way off. And I think I could almost nobody said anything. I could almost feel the pause, like, what in the heck is her problem? And later on, I don't know, a couple hours, I went back and read, and I was like, it wasn't really that serious. I done went off on everybody. Everybody in the email went off on. I had to go back and apologize because I don't know what happened, but sometimes somebody said it's best to just pause, take a break, like Chanel said and Bishop said, and come back to it a little later, because
Mhm.
what comes in your mind immediately is not always the best response. Am I right?
You are. And when you said that, you made me think about something. And if you're new here, I always come on here and tell my business. It's totally fine. Y'all can tell it too. um, And so I have this like group of friends, and they are like I would say like kind of like my lifeline, and they're not my best friends. We will never be best friends. That's not the design of the relationship. It's a thin line that we walk with each other, where there's a constant level of accountability. There's a necessity to like almost like be each other's mirror. And I think that sometimes your best friend look just like you, so you can't see the difference. And so you need people whose only interest in you is helping you be better. And I can remember there was a period of time where I think like I just needed a break from being seen so clearly and just needed to be supported. And um a part of trust is telling people when they are not doing their best for you and asking them to change. And I think the next step behind that is being okay with the fact that maybe they don't want to change, and then you having to manage your way through that. And so one of the things that we had done is we had gotten very text heavy, and you can't detect tone over text. Now, if I'm already in my feelings about life and I text you something, and then you respond back, if I'm in my feelings, right, it doesn't feel good no matter what you say. And so me and one person were just kind of going back and forth. And I was like, oh, she got me messed up. Like, who does she think she's talking to? So, I always joke and say, like, I'm really from the south side of Chicago. I'm not from the suburbs. And so I was like,
South
okay,
side.
right? And so I write this message, and y'all, I'm good with words. I get paid for words, right? Like, that is my thing. And so I got this text message carefully curated, and it is hitting. It's gonna effectively communicate what I want. And I read that, and I was like, do you value this relationship? Because you may not be able to come back. So I deleted it, and I called her. I was like, hey, like, what's going on? She was like, nothing. And I immediately realized that she was trying to comfort me, but because I was feeling how I felt like I was under attack. I'm like, oh, I got guns too. And had I have sent that message, she would have been blindsided, flabbergasted, and hurt. And so I was like, can I elevate this communication and just make sure that I'm understanding before I respond like I'm in a war and this poor child is out here picking flowers. Like, just she about to catch a stray. And so,
I like that.
And so then she now, and then literally after we had that conversation, she has no idea that I was so upset. And I want to say that, like, it was so comforting and so peaceful after we had that conversation. And it was really the thing my heart needed, to be like enveloped in her kindness and just being encouraged by her presence. And that is a stark transition from when I was ready to literally Hiroshima her over this text. And, just like being honest and not sometimes leveling up, right? Like leveling up the communication outside of that text message and picking up the phone and understanding. Like I said, she was happy, having a good day. And I was like about to ruin her whole week. So you're absolutely right, Dr. Jackie.
You opened up, you know what? You opened up the door to the next, fostering empathy. By tuning into the speaker's emotions and perspectives, and active listening cultivates empathy. Understanding the speaker's point of view contributes to a stronger connection. Yes, sometimes you have to really listen, because sometimes people are not really saying what they're really feeling, but they're trying to express it. They're not doing a good job. So you really have to listen. And also, those nonverbals are so important. Is that right, Bishop?
It is. It is. I've been in meetings that completely went bad because the body language said so many things, and this is and this is very important. Um, but before I leap into that, I want to go back to the texting. We tell people all the time that texting is one of the worst forms uh, of communication, when especially when you're dealing with matters of the heart. When you're dealing with real life issues, it's different if I'm saying, "Hey, what you want to eat?" Hey, that it's different. Hey, what time we going to the movies? But when you start to deal with real life issues, texting is a very difficult thing to process, because we hear it how we feel. And that's essentially what Chanel was saying. We hear the response to people texting us most of the time how we feel.
Yeah.
And so the fact that text doesn't have a tone, if you've ever had a bad conversation with this person, you're going to automatically put that tone, whatever conversation y'all had, whether it was a month ago, whether it was years ago, whether they shared with you something that they was disgruntled with about someone else, you're going to attach that tone to that text, and you're going to respond in a negative way. Yeah, I tell people all the time, be cautious with text, because it's too much left for interpretation. Too much left for interpretation. But back to the other thing. What was the other thing that you said, Dr. King?
I don't know. Shoot, that was
You
long.
don't know what? Oh, are you not listening, Dr. King?
No,
No, listen to me. No,
she
I done
is
said so
listening, but
much.
she's listening
I don't
so
know.
intently.
I don't know which
Come
one
on
you're
now.
saying. I done said a whole bunch of stuff.
You did. You did. But I think you were talking about the emotions of a
Yes, I
person,
did.
listening
Yeah,
to
that's exactly right.
how
Emotions
they
and
feel.
empathy.
Yeah, empathy. Because a lot of times, if we're not careful, um we can be heartless, right?
Ooh.
Because here's the thing, and this is what I tell people all the time: don't judge your friends because they can't always respond the way that you need them to respond, or be what you need them to be in your moment of crisis, because they may very well be going through something themselves, right? And when you're going through things yourself, it's sometimes, not all the time, right? Not this is not across the board, but this but sometimes it's very difficult to express that empathy, that love, that understanding when I'm in the midst of a fire myself,
Mm.
because I need rescuing. And so we have to be careful to mishandle people when they themselves are going through something. Then the flip side of the coin is that you have to know that you are gifted, that you are anointed to handle other people's situations, to speak life into their situations, to encourage them. You have to know that even when you are going through something, that you are still anointed to handle someone else. Right? I can't tell you how many times as a pastor that I've been in a low place, that I've been in a place where I needed someone to encourage me, but if my phone rung, right in that moment, I jump into bishop mode. I jump into the encourager. I jump into the prayer warrior, right? Because that's my assignment in life. And
Right.
so I tell my daughters this all the time, because they'll say, well, hey, I got this friend and I'm there for her and she's never there for me. And we have to understand that everybody that we're in relationship with is not the same. It's not for the same reason. So you could be in relationship with them to be their encourager. Now you got to find a friend that can offer you what you are able to offer others. And
I
so
like that. I like
yeah, so yeah, I teach that to my daughters all the time. Just having daughters, trying to get them to learn how to effectively navigate relationships with their friends through school, through high school, and through adulthood even.
And we're very emotional. Angela Wakefield Manning says, Chicago in the house. Being
Now,
from
speaking of Chicago, I used to live on the south side,
I
69th and
know.
Merle. Now, don't play with it
I
now.
Yeah,
63rd in
Deborah
Cottage
knows. I
Grove.
think
Okay.
she knew that. But she says, being from Chicago, I had to dig deeper to feel what others are feeling, and therapy helped. And let me tell you something. I'm will be the first to tell you, don't look down on therapy. A lot of times in the churches have taught you that you just pray it away and fast it away, and
Shout it
nothing.
away.
It's nothing wrong with getting therapy. We're trying to go to the next level mentally as well. And some people just going to church, it ain't going to work. You
It's
need
not.
some professional counseling. You might
Well,
even need some medication. whatever.
Listen,
But don't just get caught up in the Bible and think this is going to go away. That's why God created professionals that can help you through
absolutely.
the crisis and all. So I want you to know it's okay to say I need help. I'm gonna tell you what I went through. Bishop knows I had a pipe burst in my kitchen, and I mean, it took them. They had to basically build me a whole new kitchen. From April to August, I didn't have a kitchen. I honestly went into a depression because, first of all, I got tired of going out to eat. I got tired of looking at this concrete floor. I had a beautiful kitchen and this tore up kitchen. All my appliances was in the garage. Now I mean, everything except for my refrigerator was in my garage, and it just put me in a real bad place. All that time, April to August, I had to seek counseling because I felt like I was losing my mind. I really did. I just couldn't stand it. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't mean to just harp on it, but that's
No,
really an important thing to remember. It's okay to say I need help.
I wanted to add something to like both of those things. Like when you're going through stuff and like, the bishop is called to like, stand in the gap for people and pray for them. And like, even in the midst of what he's going through, it sounds like there's some uplifting and encouraging that goes along with helping people when he needs help.
absolutely.
And absolutely not for me. That's not how it works. I am somebody who pours into people. And I'll give you a prime example. So in 2021, I lost my aunt, who was like my second mother. We lived in a building, typical Chicago. My family owned an apartment building. And at some point, all my family lived either in the same apartment or the same building. And so she was like a second mother to me. And then I was in a relationship and engaged someone for 10 years and he passed away. So February and December. And I feel like I just got the wind knocked out of me. And I remember like people calling me because I'm the encourager. Like I don't do the Debbie Downer. I'm the one who's like, oh, this happened. Let's fix it. Right. Like my friend called me the other day. Her daddy was in the hospital. She couldn't figure out what room he was in. 10 minutes later, I called her back with a room number, the nurse's information. Like I'm going to figure it out. And I remember just being like, I really don't care what's happening with anybody else. And so I text all my friends on a single text and I was like, hey, listen, I got to step back. I need time. Pray for me. I'm going to pray for y'all. But like, please don't reach out. When I'm ready, I'll reach out. And so all my friends was like, I'm going to pray for you. Some of them sent me like my name on prayer cards at their church. And that was it. Because I was like, I cannot I don't want your good news. I don't want your bad news. I just need time to figure out what my life is like after this grief, right? And I'm running my business because I'm a full-time entrepreneur. So I'm having to show up so I can feed myself, like Dr. Jackie said. And she was talking about being depressed without a kitchen. I'm like, oh, I'd have to move. Like that is just outside of the bounds. And I'm just having to like figure out how to support myself. And I realized in that moment that like the boundary for me was like, I needed to be me and God. That's all I could handle. I would do my job. And I remember just like doing my job. I would go for long walks. And eventually I came back around and all my friends were like, I'm glad you got the help you needed. I'm glad you got the support you needed. And people who know me well enough to know that sometimes I just need to be quiet. It's not you. It's that I have reached my limit. And out of respect for you and myself, because you can call me on the phone, I'll be silent. And you'd be like, hello? Yeah. Like I just
no, it'd be going to voicemail.
No, first of all, my phone, I'm always doing this. My phone always goes to voicemail and I forget to turn it off. But I think for women, oftentimes we feel like if we walk away, we won't have anything to come back to. And I would argue that all of my relationships are stronger because we had a hard reset. And so I was able to kind of pick and choose how I dealt with people, and my relationships with everybody is better because I literally, like when I say I couldn't, like I love that man. And there was no part of me that didn't think, we weren't even together at that time. There was no part of me that thought that there will be a world that I lived in and he wasn't in it. Like I thought he'd get married, have more children, be happy, healthy, adjusted. And so for him to just die, I'm like, what? Right? Like that, it just completely altered my reality. And I think that nobody tells people enough, it's okay to stop. And so yes, therapy, right? Yes, exercise, yes, work, get the help you need. But sometimes the answer is doing nothing. And that's just as important as doing all the things we mentioned. And I think that I work with a lot of women. And sometimes I'm like, if you're sick, why are we meeting? And like, oh, I'm going to thug it out. No, you're not. You're going to get off the phone. Like, take good care of yourself. And I think that, like, understanding and communicating, and I'm hard on that. If you sick, don't talk to me. Hit me. I'll be here. Nothing changes for us. If we have to extend the program, we do something different. But please just stop. And that has been like the most important lesson for me as a business owner, as a woman, as a friend, as a girlfriend, is that, like, I am confident enough now in my relationships that I can tell you, like, right now, I just can't talk, or I just can't do this. And knowing that I'm going to come back and it's going to be okay has been a challenge in the beginning. But now I don't disappear. I just, like, take a step back. And that's hard for people who don't know me in the beginning, but eventually they're like, oh, she's just doing the best that she can. And they will be like, I'm gonna pray for you. Hopefully, whatever you're going through, you'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm getting there with her. But listen, shout out to uh, Apostle Dawana Whitaker, who is the queen wife of Bishop Whitaker. She's on, and she also go to follow her. You got the book, Bishop.
I got the book
Well,
today.
it's about time. Uh,
Listen, I got the book with me. It'll be up on Amazon soon. But she has a website, imabadwoman.org. You can go there and order her
I'm a
book.
bad woman. You want to get that book.
Yeah,
It's
I'm a
going to be
bad woman.
speaking of
Um,
encouragement. We are, yes, and
can I can
she
I
is a
can
bad,
I say
bad,
something?
beautiful woman. Yes,
Can,
Bishop.
can I say something? Listening to and now for those that don't know, I'm a strong advocate for uh counseling, therapy. We have had went live with therapists. We've had therapists at our church on a Sunday morning, um, and gave them the whole service, and not a preacher, but a therapist, because you know I value what I do, and I love people enough to know that if what I'm giving you is not helping you, then perhaps there's something deeper. And I'm not such, ego driven that I'm afraid to get people the help that they need. And so I'm a firm believer in therapy, and I'm also a firm believer in falling back. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in loving yourself enough. I put a post up at the beginning of the year saying this year, love others deeply and love yourself as deeply as well. And because I firmly believe that, if I don't care for myself, I can't be good for you. Right. I can't really be a blessing, whatever blessing that I'm called to be in your life. I have to love myself deeply and care for myself, and I got to be able to turn it off. I pour out so much. I'm not only a bishop; I'm a presiding bishop. I have other churches that are connected to me, and so sometimes, the reason we had hiatus from Bible study, I was tired of pouring out, so I gave myself 4 weeks, of not teaching Bible study. We didn't have church at we didn't have church for 2 weeks, the end of the year and New Year's. We were in Little Rock, Arkansas. I believe in falling back and regrouping, resetting, all of that. I preached a series of messages leading up to the end of the year. The series was called "It's Time to Reset." I believe that we have to do those things to care for ourselves. But I know we're
Absolutely.
running out of
And
time.
and you are so right. And Bishop, he didn't he neglected to say him and his wife are intricate part of BWE. They
We
come on
are indeed.
encouragement. I got another Zoom. I got to get on. We're gonna have to do a part two of this because I didn't even
I love it.
half of the stuff that I wanted to cover. I didn't cover.
Hey,
So
let's do part two.
we're gonna have to do a
I'm
part next week. Before we go, I want you all to know that January 15th, Martin Luther King's birthday, we are releasing our Black Women in Power business and personal directory. You can get in there and tell them, Bishop, it is off the chart. When I
Yeah,
tell you
I
it's a
think
game
this
changer,
is
go
yeah.
Bishop.
No, I think this is going to be something that is going to shift all of us who are involved with it. I think it's going to give all of us exposure on a much grander scale. And I believe that it's going to cause you to prosper financially. I mean, I
New
don't
relationships.
new listen. Networking will be just limitless. Like I just think that this is. I told Dr. King before we went live. This is absolutely incredible. I just stared at the screen for a little while, like wow, you know. And I called my wife. I'm like, hey, this is big. This
Yeah.
is really big. So I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
And put it on your calendars, January 15th. We're gonna do a live. We're gonna come back. Um, Chanel will have her business up there by then, so she can come back with us and talk about it.
Do y'all hear the shade? I want
That
y'all to
was
know.
shade. I
Do
was
y'all
trying
hear
to
the shade?
Now,
Okay.
Dr. King is a professional shade thrower.
Hold on. I gotta defend myself, y'all. I was sick the whole month of December. So I am literally just getting my footing back. I had an allergic reaction and almost died. I had a
Oh, wow.
terrible back thing that happened. So December was just like a difficult month. And so I'm just getting my footing. But say all that to say while we're here, make sure you follow everybody.
Go to blackwomenempower.org. Chanel, can you type it in real quick? I got
Yeah, I
already
will.
started joining my other Zoom, so we got to be quick.
I
But
am. I'm doing my disclaimer. Make sure y'all follow us all. Make sure you repost us if you learned any one thing. Please, as you're reposting, share what you learned. This could be the difference for somebody in a very impactful way. And I know Dr. Jackie has to go, so really quickly, if you're interested in learning about government contracting, if you're stagnant in your business trying to figure out how to make money, please reach out to me and make sure, most importantly, you follow us so you get the notification. We're here every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. Oh Lord, 8 a.m. Pacific. So please share with us and join us. We would love to continue to have you be a part of the community. And don't forget to go to blackwomenempowered.org. I will drop that in the chat.
I just put it in there.
Okay.
Click on I want more in 2024, and that is where you will go also to join the new directory. You'll be able to get to it right from our website, and it is a game changer. As always, I love you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And we'll be back next week. We'll be continuing this next week. I don't typically, y'all know I'll be watching The Young and the Restless, and I don't typically schedule anything at 12, but this was unavoidable. So I may have to watch the replay today. God bless you. And we'll be back next week. Bishop, your church, give me your church real quick.
Epic Church, Atlanta, 3755 Kings Highway, Douglasville, Georgia. Follow us on Facebook to keep up with all things Epic.
All right. God bless. See you next week.